let me moderator. Okay. So we have two lecturers. The first is Prof. Tae-Hyoung Tommy Kim, Ph.D. Will be present on sustainability, recent and future impact of COVID-19. And the second is Ibu Anita Ratnasari. Yeah. So because Prof. Tommy Kim has appeared on the screen, I think we skip the CV, isn't it? Okay. Please welcome Mr. Tommy Kim
Okay,
for
thank you so
the
much.
presentation.
All right.
Time and
As
screen is
introduced,
for
I'm
you.
Tommy Kim, and I'm so honored to give a presentation at the University of Diponegoro, Department of Urban and Regional Planning. Actually, I wanted to discuss different definitions of sustainability as used in urban planning and other spatial disciplines. But last week, I was asked by Ms. Landung to talk a little bit about the impact of COVID-19. And this is the flow of my presentation. I firstly show whether sustainability is a fuzzy concept and how it has been defined by planners and other spatial scientists. The second section is about the current impact of COVID-19. I think it is a little bit hard to understand and geared to graduate students. So for undergrad, I instead recommend taking a look at the result part only. And this section is based on two cooperative projects independently funded by the National Research Foundation of Korea and Seoul National University. The project involved 9 teams and 37 researchers who represent 14 universities and 7 countries. Actually, Professor Yudi and her student are also on board. Specifically, I showed 2 studies conducted by me and my student. The first study discussed how people's perception of the COVID risk affected their choice of activity places or travel destinations. The second empirical study then analyzed how people's choice of travel mode has changed over time according to COVID-19. The first section shows 5 definitions of sustainability as often used by planners. Sustainability is a holistic concept. Oftentimes, it was used as a symbolic rhetoric without definition. So sustainable development plans became just a wish list with attractive expressions, just for consensus building from the public. Actually, in the early 2000s, there was a big debate on a fuzzy concept in the field of regional science. According to Professor Markussen, sustainability is a typical example of fuzzy concept because it does not have a clear definition, according to her. In practice, a fuzzy concept is hard to apply and evaluate. In academia, since studies differently define and measure the concept, it's not possible to review the validity of the studies. However, as opposed to Markussen, other regional scientists argue that a concept is considered clear if the definitions are related and have some patterns. This is the 5 pillars of sustainability. The first, the balance, is a basic principle from the Brundtland report. Capacity shows the carrying capacity for the habitat or environment. Fitness and resilience are concerned with the relationship between a habitat and its organisms or individuals. Fitness focuses on the individuals, while resilience evaluates the habitat. The last pillar, diversity, shows the reciprocal relationship among the individuals. This is the most well-known definition of sustainability, which is derived from the Brundtland report. The balance between the present and future generations, as you may know or may not know. Actually, the official title of the report highlights the balance between the environment and economic development. This principle is usually represented by 3 E's: economy, environment, and social equity. So, also, political fairness is often added to the 3 E's. I wanted to highlight that in this basic principle, the 4 components cannot be replaced by each other. For example, sustainability cannot be achieved by improving the environment at the cost of the economy. The second principle is the carrying capacity of the habitat. This definition was adopted by IUCN and many economists. An environmental system is considered sustainable if consumption is not declining over time. The third principle is fitness. It evaluates the degree to which an individual can fit into an environment. This definition was shown in Schumacher's best-selling book, Small is Beautiful. So, a cookie-cutter style development model, which is usually or often enforced by UN and other environmental bodies, are not really applicable to many developing countries. The fourth principle or pillar is diversity. It was first introduced by Wilson in his book, Biodiversity. For the purpose of coexistence, the diversity principle requires mutual adjustment and reciprocal learning among the individuals. This principle has alternative terms like cultural diversity, ethnic diversity, racial diversity, land use mix, and job size imbalance, and so on. The last principle is resilience, and it measures how an environment or community can take external individuals or impact and still maintain its health or readily recover from the impact. So among the 5 principles of sustainability, the COVID-19 has challenged the utility of a compact urban system. For the 2 empirical studies, I used the data from a first-hand survey. The survey was conducted from September to October 2020 in Seoul. In the first study, I classified urban places into 3 types according to the mandatory level of the place visit, and I analyzed how people's trips to these 3 places have changed according to COVID-19. As to the mandatory level, for example, you can often forced to go to work, school, fixed times a week at a certain time of the day, not to be late, right? But you can adjust how often and when you enjoy leisure activities. For this study, I had 2 purposes. First, it seems easier and more flexible to reduce the number of discretionary leisure trips than compulsory business trips. So according to the flexibility level, I wanted to identify the types of activity places or trip destinations. Second, I explored major determinant of the trip frequency for each place type, each of the 3 place types. To identify the determinant of the place visit, I used ordered logic because the visit frequency was measured at the ordinal scale. The risk variables on the right, I don't want to look through these. I want to mention every detail of these variables. Just I grouped places into mandatory. The important thing is I grouped all the places into 3 types: mandatory, maintenance, and discretionary types. The mandatory places are like schools and workplaces. And maintenance places are like hospitals, grocery stores, and banks, and so on. And the typical example of discretionary places is leisure facilities. So you can see ANOVA results on the right, on the left actually, sorry. They are highlighted, right? Highlighted in yellow. Because variances are heterogeneous, I used the Games Howell test and found that trip frequencies in the pandemic era were reduced in the order of discretionary, maintenance, and mandatory places. On the right, psychometric items like attitudinal and preference, the variables, like their opinions were reduced into 3 factors through exploratory factor analysis. These perception variables were used as independent variables in the original logic model. The left table presents the result of ordered logic. The second row from the bottom, highlighted in yellow, shows that the risk perception always reduced trip frequencies regardless of trip place type. And let's look at the first 3 rows. This factor 2, the preference of offline consumption. This factor always increased the frequency of a visit. By contrast, factors 1 and 3, that is, people's effort to observe the social distance policy and to refrain from outdoor activities was significant only in models 2 and 3. That is, in reducing visits to maintenance and discretionary places. This means individuals' effort against COVID-19 may encourage them not to go to less mandatory places. Including non-mandatory activities, whether the trips are mandatory or non-mandatory, all contact required activities require they bring about transportation, travel. So the second empirical study analyzed how people's choice of travel modes, like automobiles, bikes, public transit, bus, subways, how their choice, people's choice, was differentiated according to their attitude to their social distancing, as well as the perceived risks of public spaces and public transportation. Stay home. For this study, I used structural education model, or SCEM. Maybe some of you, especially grad students, are familiar with SCM. I used SCM because of the complex relationship among research variables. is overlapping a little bit, right? The left figure shows the conceptual form of the empirical model. The personal and social factors are exogenous, so they are not pointed at by any arrow. The others are endogenous. The two exogenous factors work as confounders, so they have a direct and indirect effect on the frequency of transit use. The perceived risks of spaces and public transit were specified as mediators or intervening variables between independent and dependent variables. The right table shows that the model fit on the bottom, it shows that the model fit is very good actually. The SRMR was less than 0.05, RMSA was lower than 0.05 as well, and CFI it's similar to I-square, like in regression, and CFI was way above 0.9. And as you can see, personal changes by COVID-19 made people have negative perceptions of spaces and public transit. Then, the higher perceived risk of spaces increased that of public transit. And the two risk factors reduced the frequency of transit use. So in total, people who experienced negative personal changes were more likely to reduce transit use. This slide shows how the social factor, not personal factor, such as positive attitude to social distancing policy, how this social factor affected transit use. The positive changes did not particularly increase the perceived risk of public transit. The factor was merely correlated with the risk of public spaces. However, the social changes directly reduced transit use. This means that those who support the social distance policy know that public transit is not particularly risky. However, they anyway reduce their transit use as a way of social distancing. This shows what is directly, indirectly affected by the social change factor. In summary, the personal factor had only indirect effect, and the social factor had only direct effect. This means regarding the personal factor, people who are unhappy and depressed tend to reduce transit use because they're afraid of the disease transmission in spaces and in transit. In contrast, as to the social factor, those people who respect the social distancing policy did not feel that public transit is particularly risky, but they anyway limited the public transit use just to observe their social distancing policy. In the last study, I wanted to predict the future impact of COVID-19 in cities. I just added at the last minute. I think it's very hard to forecast the future of the city by extending the trend line because of the extreme uncertainty. So based on the external group interviews over the past couple of days, I developed two scenarios. The first scenario is going back to the normal state, the compact city. The compact city maximizes human interactions and economic efficiency. it often experiences crowding in mass transit and traffic congestion on the main street. I want to note that many compact cities, including Seoul and Jakarta, went through more severe damages from COVID-19 compared to other cities in respective countries. In the future, compact cities will introduce more of TOD, which stands for transit-oriented development, and rapid mass transit, ITS and TDM. ITS stands for intelligent transportation system, and TDM means travel demand management. The compact cities will have more policies and plans like this to reduce congestion, and they will also have these policies, these like strategies to reduce transportation and environmental issues because they are caused by long distance automobile travel. Noticed in the compact cities. The second scenario is moving to the new normal state, which is contact-free city. In South Korea, it's broken English, but we use on-tech city. It's not really English, but on, not tech, and contact. So on-tech city, it's contact-free city. This city facilitates work from home, flexible working and school system, and online shopping. So it has less demand for public transportation. Then people's activities will take place closer to home and their trips will become shorter. The contact-free city will have higher demand for private modes to limit physical contact. The city will develop decentralized structure, and people's activities will be centered on mixed-use neighborhoods, their residential neighborhoods. Also, traditional urban centers like CBD, commercial business district, the main center of the city will be used for other purposes because of the less demand. And my final conclusions. This is the picture I've taken from Economist. We should note that COVID-19 is just a quick snapshot of disasters brought about by the climate change. Yes, there's a bigger guy behind COVID-19. As you can see on the right, epidemics are one of the 8 types of impact by the climate change. The climate crisis can extinguish the human civilization. So minimizing the fossil fuel use and shifting from emission-extensive transportation system is paramount. In fact, global cities have already adopted innovative strategies to give the right of way to pedestrians, bikers, and intelligent personal mobility and so on. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for the listening. Okay. Okay, I was given 30 minutes and I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Prof. Tommy. It's very interesting and inspiring presentation. Yeah? And I impressed with the last picture with behind the corona is climate change, a very big or huge creature that will we must face in the future. Okay. uh, so students, all of you can prepare your question. It's a very interesting topic. We bring with the Mr. Tommy bring us to the how the future about the after the pandemic era. Yeah? So prepare your question, but before that, I invite Bu Anita at the second lecture to present the materials of lecture, and then we can discuss about the two lecturer. Okay, Bu Anita, please welcome. Okay, I think without background is more better. Without
Uh,
virtual background is more better to you.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I
Yes.
can hear Ms. Anita because she's mute. Oh, okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, Prof. Okay, Bu Anita, time and screen is yours.
Okay, thank you, Pak Yudi, and greeting always healthy for all. Okay, do you see my share screen?
Okay, it's good.
Okay,
Clearly.
okay, okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Anita Ratnasari from the Department of Urban and Regional Planning at Universitas Diponegoro. I would like to say thank you for Professor Tae-Hyoung Ph.D. has been willing to share knowledge with us, especially for our students. And thank you also to the International Lecture Series organizer that have given me for the time and this valuable opportunity to share and present our research about impact of COVID-19 on transportation planning. The outline of the presentation that I will explain today consists of two main topics. There are COVID-19 impact on built environment, and then COVID-19 impact on mobility. Talking about transportation planning during a pandemic, there are some facts that we know. The number of COVID-19 cases in the world has reached 216 million with a high transmission rate. Based on research conducted by Barbarossa in 2020, as many as 70% of cases occur in densely populated urban areas. The issue of transmission through the air makes public open spaces very vulnerable to become the center of the spread of new cases. In an effort to deal with these conditions, several countries, such as Indonesia, have implemented strict health protocols in public spaces, such as public transportation. Okay. Indonesia, most cases occur in big cities such as Semarang and Jakarta. COVID-19 cases in Semarang in 2020 have reached 80,000 cases with a high death rate. As one of the city that became a pilot project for the development of transit-based public transportation, health protocols on public transportation, such as the Trans Semarang Bis, are strictly implemented. One of them is by limiting the number of passengers. As a result, there was a drastic decrease in the number of passengers to above 50%. On the other hand, the provision of transit-based transportation is also a place for the buyers to move from the city center to the outskirts of the city. The international emergency status issue by the World Health Organization and the increasing severity of COVID-19 cases in Indonesia have caused the government to implement very strict health protocol from PSBB, pembatasan sosial berskala besar, or social activities restriction on large area scale, until PPKM, pemberlakuan pembatasan kegiatan masyarakat, or enforcement of restriction on community activities like the lockdown that is also enforced in other countries. One example regulation of Ministry of Transportation and also Ministry of Health, there has been a drastic decline in mobility since the implementation of various regulations. From the graph of mobility in public space, such as public transportation, decreased by 46.84% and parks decreased by 82.29% respectively. COVID-19 impact on built environment. Okay. COVID-19 and environmental condition can be said to have a close relationship. In connection with the facts previously mentioned, COVID-19 is transmitted in the air so that public open spaces are very vulnerable to becoming the center of the spread of new cases. Therefore, it is necessary to have an adaptive approach to the environment to suppress the transmission process. Several studies have stated that good environment condition will affect human health, and the built environment approach is one way to achieve this. According to Carvalho and Coleman, there are three key elements in the built environment, namely density, diversity, and design. We tried to analyze the condition of the built environment along the Trans-Semarang Bis Corridor during the COVID-19 pandemic. Data such as the number of buildings, land use condition, and the availability of pedestrian parking facilities serve as the basis for the analysis. Through an analysis of the built environment element, a model of the built environment approach was obtained along the Trans-Semarang Bis Corridor during the COVID-19 pandemic. In the design element, it is found that the largest population density is in urban areas. Trans-Semarang Bis Transit Center as a whole are in location with high density level. This causes a great opportunity for the spread of COVID-19 from one place to another. Okay. Analysis of the comparison between residential and non-residential land use found that the average transit point area in Semarang City has a high level of residential land use, where most of the transit centers are close to land use for trade, services, and education. If viewed from the design element, pedestrian paths in big cities such as Semarang City are getting worse and worse toward the outskirts of the city. The main problem in the providing this pedestrian path are the lack of supporting facilities. the low level of pedestrian safety, and the lack of vegetation, so that during the day, it feels less comfortable to walk. The result of linear regression using SPSS found that of the three components of the built environment, it was the diversity element that had a significant influence on the frequency of walking activities in the city of Semarang. The use of land for trade, services, and education has a high appeal to a person's desire to travel. And then COVID-19 impact on mobility. Based on report from CNN in 2021, the mobility of the population of the city of Jakarta is increasing as if COVID-19 has disappeared. The recent Jakarta residents continue to move. To move during the COVID-19 pandemic is that some people have been vaccinated. The need to work and the high mobility of migrants from outside the area have led to the continued increase in the use of public transportation, public spaces, and office buildings. If it continues, it is feared that it will cause a spike in cases in Jakarta and its surrounding. Okay. The result of the typology analysis of all characteristic of Transjakarta bus user during the COVID-19 pandemic is the division of Transjakarta bus into 5 groups, most of which are dominated by students and workers. The typology of students is divided into groups that rarely use Transjakarta and those who often use Transjakarta during the pandemic. Meanwhile, most of the working group often use Transjakarta. There is even a group of workers whose big income is above above the minimum wage, using Transjakarta even if only for travel to work. The result of the research in Jakarta show that there is a high correlation between the number of The typology of Transjakarta users during the pandemic is supported by characteristic of user whose income is mostly UMP, the minimum wage of Provinsi Jakarta, and also the low ownership of private vehicle, which show that there are no alternative vehicle options, namely private vehicles, other than using Transjakarta. Based on the diagram, there are 76% of users who do not have a private vehicle. So there are captive types of users in using Transjakarta. So mobility using Transjakarta is only carried out by people with income below the minimum wage and do not own a private vehicle. Okay. Continue the result of research in Jakarta so that there is a high correlation between the number of residents and the rate of spread of COVID-19. Area with low population number have a low number of positive cases of COVID and vice versa. In addition, the number of Transjakarta bus stop has a significant effect on the number of positive cases. Using hotspot analysis, so a location with a large number of bus stop have a high number of positive COVID-19 cases. Yeah. The result of the hotspot analysis are supported by a strong relationship between the concentration of bus stop from the total tap in and tap out Transjakarta and the spread of COVID-19 in the area around the Transjakarta bus stop. This shows that the existence of transit-based transportation such as the Transjakarta bus has a high impact on the spread of cases between regions via bus stop. Conclusion. The conclusion that can be formulated in this presentation is that there is a need to improve open space services and public transportation to better fit for pandemic. Transit-based transportation is one of the potential container for the spread of COVID-19, so need to manage density. There need to be an adjustment to the physical environment that is adaptive to COVID-19. Improve facilities at bus stop locations so that the public area does not become a place of transmission of COVID-19. So, in future, Transjakarta become the main choice of city people in carry out their movement. So users are not only captive group. And that's all my presentation about the COVID-19 impact on transportation planning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bu Anita and Professor Tommy Kim. I think it's time to invite our student to give some question or discussion. Intan, is there any question in the chat?
Actually, I have a question for Anita. And you said among the 3Ds, like density, diversity, and design, you said only diversity has an impact on pedestrian travel. So what are the implications of the result? So yes, density and diversity don't have a significant impact on pedestrian travel.
Could you repeat your question again, Prof. Tommy?
So you analyze 3 built environment variables: density, diversity,
and design.
Yes, right. 3D is developed by Professor Vero, right? Yes, right.
Yeah.
And they are core variables, right, of the built environment. We use 3Ds, 5Ds, 7Ds, right? 5Ds include distance to transit and destination accessibility. So in addition to the 3Ds, we often analyze this public transit and proximity and the urban center accessibility. Anyway, the 3 these are the core variables. And according to your analysis, only the diversity variable became significant in affecting the pedestrian travel, right? The first study. So what are the implications of their result? So The other two variables are not really differentiate people's pedestrian travel, walking travel, or so. Because my case area usually is Seoul, and we have some variations across cities, right? So I mean, it's called, in my study, I call it spatial multicollinearity, because the spatial variables are correlated to each other. When density is high, the city has, or the area has good road network systems, and public transit is very close, and it is accompanied by the mixed land uses, right? So these variables are closely related to each other. And so we locate transit stations only if the density level is above a certain degree, right? So these variables are very similar in some ways. So actually, in my study, using the case of Seoul, the diversity was often found not to be significant. And my interpretation of the result is, well, Seoul was developed from the early 1970s, according to the former president of South Korea, who got the regime via coup d'etat. It's a military regime, and he was very powerful, and he changed the urban structure very rapidly. And we couldn't really have mixed land use, the zoning or land use systems in Seoul. So even though the density, residential or pedestrian density, is very high in some areas, like Gangnam is kind of popular because of Psy's song, and Gangnam is a popular area district in Seoul. But you know, the diversity level in the Gangnam district is very low, so it's not really attractive to people. It does not affect the people's travel behavior. That was my interpretation. So I was just curious why density and design variables turned out to be not significant in your case area.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Tommy. That data, my research collect data in begin 2020. So, and this begin the begin of restriction of social activity is not strictly implemented. Compare in no, yeah. So in diversity and design maybe not yet change, more change, and but in the in now diversity and design maybe more change because have a restriction from government about community activity and social activity maybe, and it's input by me for next research, our next research. Prof. Tommy, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Tommy. I'm sorry I'm throw away from Zoom because the internet is not stable. But I think we have enriched so a lot about your presentation and your argument, Mr. Tommy. I think Hamsamida.
Thank you so much. Wow, I got chills. Thank you
Yes.
so much. Your
Okay.
pronunciation is nearly perfect.
Because
Yes.
I often see the K-pop. Okay. There is the one question in the chat, Mr. Tommy, um, from Ibu Dia. COVID-19 affect the reduction of public transport use. So regarding that, could you give us information of strategic problem, strategic from South Korea to manage that problem? Yeah.
Yes,
How
right.
to South Korea or Seoul to manage the problem that the reduction of public transport uses? Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
right. From the early 2010, the former mayor of Seoul,
Mhm.
who later became the president of South Korea, the Mr. Myung-bak Lee,
Mhm.
made a public transportation run by the government. And it's really easy for the Seoul government to reorganize the transportation system in terms of the headway and running speed. Headway means the interval between
Mhm.
cars or buses. And they changed, even though the profitability became low,
Mhm.
they had a bigger concern for the safety of the public. And
Mhm.
as you know, as we know, whether the COVID-19 is a contagious disease. So we need to reduce the physical contact. For that purpose, they wanted to reduce the crowding level inside a car of the subway
Mhm.
and buses.
Mhm.
I think it worked, not just because it reduced the number of the confirmed cases, but it also affected people's concern. I mean, they felt it is less risky to use the public transit. To be honest, I'm a transportation person, but it was really hard to find whether using the public transit increases the risk level. I mean, I couldn't really find locate one study at all. So I don't think whether I don't think well, I don't want to jump to conclusion for now, but the, using public transit is real risky. That's my question for the next study.
Mhm. Okay, thank you, Prof. Tommy. I think we have same problem in Indonesia. So public transport is more risky for us to during the pandemic. Yeah? But it's okay. Thank you for explanation. To Dia Intan, perhaps you want to dig little more about the conversation, please, or is enough for your question, please, Budia. Okay. Okay, thank you. That Budia say thank you. Okay. Thank you, Prof. Tommy. Is there any question from audience or my special students from IUP degree, perhaps, or another audience? Please, you raise the hand, or directly you can talk in this room. Anyone? Okay. Uh, to Anita, perhaps? You smile, smile. Okay. Uh, yeah, I think a lot of we have get from this lecture series, yeah, from Professor Tommy. We know that in the world, or especially in Seoul or in the South Korea, Thank you for the sharing, sharing about the effect of the pandemic, and you give a very bright presentation that we know that in the future there are some challenges. And to Bu Anita, thank you for the sharing about the COVID and pandemic in the Jakarta and Semarang. I hope Professor Tommy can visit us in Semarang soon to prove the finding of the Bu Anita, and perhaps we can collaborate it in the next research. Okay.
Look forward to it.
Okay.
It seems like our student is very shy, Pak Yudi. They don't want to raise questions.
Shy cat. They say shy cat, ya. Malu-malu kucing. Okay. Okay, Prof. Tommy, on behalf of department, I'm sorry, on behalf of Baccalaureate program, I say once again, 감사합니다. And
I was really honored to have the chance to give a presentation, and thank you so much, Professor Vivi, Professor Yuan, Professor Yudi, and Anita, and so on, and all the students. Thank you so much. I hope to see you very soon.
Yeah. We hope so. Prof, Vivi, perhaps some conclusion remark or close the lecture series, or
No, I just want to say thank you, Prof. Tommy. It's always very nice to have a collaboration with you, and hopefully we can continue. Yeah, we plan to have an international lecture series every semester, and hope to continue. And maybe next year we can do it offline. Prof. Tommy.
Sure,
so
sure.
I mean, you can come here and look forward, yeah, for that opportunity. Okay, and
so.
thank you also to Pak Yudi and Bu Anita, Yudi, and all the participants. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think that is all, Pak Yudi.
Thank you, Prof. Vivi. Before we closing, I think we need to take a photograph together. Intan, would you mind to take our photograph? Okay.
Okay.
Or Pak Imam. Okay.
Okay. For all participants, thank you, and you can on your camera. And I will take the shot. There are 4 pages. Okay. Start from first page. Wait.
Okay.
First page again. 1, 2, 3. The page. Okay. For the second until the last page. The people they just open their camera. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
For
Thank
all
you,
participants. Thank you, Pak Yudi. Thank you, Prof. Somi. Thank you, Bu Anita.
Okay, thank you, Intan.
Thank you, Mbak Intan. Thank you, Prof. Tommy.
Thank you so much.
See you.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you, Professor.
Halo.
Thank you so much, Professor Ivan.
Yeah, Mas Tommy.
Yes,
Nice
I miss
to
you.
hear your sound again.
Miss you.
Yeah. See you later, ya.
Yeah, stay healthy and bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Ya, bye-bye.
See you, Tommy.
Bye-bye.
Oh, udah.
Bye-bye. See you, sarangnya.